Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this regular meeting of council on June 1st, already 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Next, I'd like to ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have 1E2, the Pritchard Green.
Noted. Anyone else? Councillor Glinsky.
Item E2.
Noted. Thank you. Next is approval of our previous minutes. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? Not seeing anything. May I have the resolution?
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on May 18th, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Cerna, Councillor Leach, all in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have a couple of public hearings. So may I ask for the resolution to move into the Committee of Adjustment?
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be called to order at 7:31 p.m. and the Mayor Dominique Giguère be appointed chairperson for the Committee of Adjustment.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Cerna, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so the purpose of this hearing is to consider an application for a minor variance as submitted by owner Kevin and Thea Ostrisser relating to property at Plan 88 lots 18 to 25 RP 11R 3634 Part 2, municipally known as 11961 Omimi Street. Do we have Mr. Steele with us? Can you walk us through the application, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. For committee tonight is a minor variance application to permit an increase in the maximum floor area of an accessory structure. The subject lands contain an existing dwelling as well as an accessory structure that's approximately 246 square meters in size. Quite a bit of history of the property. The property is previously zoned general agricultural A1, which does not include specific zoning requirements for accessory structures. And the property was later rezoned to Village Residential 1 during the 2018 zoning bylaw consolidation, and was subsequently added to the Springfield settlement area and designated as residential as part of the official plan amendment that council approved last year. The owner is proposing to increase the size of the structure to a total area of 292 square meters, which would exceed the maximum floor area that's required in the VR1 zone. And so that's the purpose of the application. When reviewing minor applications, there are 4 tests for committee to consider. The first, that it maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The proposed accessory structure would be permitted use under both the county and Malahide official plans. And generally, the policies official plans seek to guide orderly development and direct growth to settlement areas. It doesn't speak specifically to maximum floor area requirements for accessory structures. And so it's deemed that the minor variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plans. The second test is that a requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The existing legal non-complying structure is approximately 246 square meters and currently exceeds the maximum requirement as a result of the rezoning of the property back in 2018. And the intent of that floor area requirement is to ensure that accessory structures remain subordinate to the main use of the property, in this case, the residential use. And while the proposed floor area does exceed the maximum requirements, the structure would continue to remain subordinate to the primary use and would not exceed the size of the dwelling, and consider the application is consistent with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Third test is the application is minor in nature. It's known that the subject lands are an existing oversight parcel, and the proposed addition to the accessory structure would be located a minimum of 35 meters away from the nearest property line. And it's also known that the existing structure has been in existence for some time and has no impacts noted to date due to its increased size. And so the proposed expansion to the accessory structure wouldn't impact adjacent landowners from using their properties for permitted uses. And the application is considered minor in nature. And finally, proposed development is desirable for the appropriate development of the use of the subject lands. And the proposed variance would permit a previous existing accessory structure to be expanded with a slightly larger footprint. And so consider that the application meets the 4th test. No comments have been received from members of the general public as the date of submission of the report. The Catfish Creek Conservation Authority has provided comments on May 23rd and has commented that they have no concerns with the proposed application. So staff would recommend that the application be approved, subject to conditional conditions regarding the building permit being issued within 2 years of any decision, as well as being built in accordance with any drawings provided with the minor variance application. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions from members of council.
Thank you for that. So does the applicant or the agent wish to provide any more information? All set? And Adams, were there any additional comments received from other agencies or landowners not outlined in the summary?
No, there were not.
Any comments or questions from council? So thank you to everyone in attendance for your input. I'll now ask the committee to make the decision on the application. So Clerk Adams, can you read the resolution, please? Silence is a form of input.
That report number DS 23-14 entitled Minor Variance Application number D13 MV 0323 of Kevin Ostrosser and affecting lands described as Plan 88 lots 18 to 25 RP 11R 3634 Part 2 in the Township of Malahide, known as 11961 Omimi Street, be received, and that the Township of Malahide Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application number D13 MV 03-23 to permit an accessory structure with a maximum floor area of 292 meters square, where the bylaw requires a maximum floor area of 120 meters square, and that the approval shall be subject to the following conditions: that the owner applicant obtain the necessary building permit within 2 years from the date of decision to the satisfaction of the chief building official, ensuring that the approved variance applies only to the proposed accessory structure as illustrated with the application, and that the structure be constructed as per the details shown in the drawings as provided with the application, site location, and architectural detail to the satisfaction of the chief building official.
Thank you for that. May I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Widner, Councillor Wilson. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and this evening we have a second minor variance application for the committee. And the purpose of this hearing is to consider an application for a minor variance as submitted by applicant David Rowe, Civic Planning Solutions, Inc., owner James Stannard and Deborah Neal, relating to property at concession 11, part lot 11, RP 11R 2617, part 1, municipally known as 49801 Lions Line. Mr. Steele, can you provide an overview of the application, please?
Yes, this application, the purpose of the application is a minor variance to permit the increase in the maximum floor area for a home occupation. The subject property contains an existing single detached dwelling as well as an accessory structure that's approximately 178 square meters in size. A portion of the structure is currently used as part of a home occupation by the owner that deals with the repairing of trucks as well as restoration of tractors and farm equipment. Based on the information provided, the owner is proposing to expand the home occupation to include the entirety of the building. However, the zoning bylaw limits the maximum floor area of a home occupation in the rural residential zone to 100 square meters. When evaluating the application against the 4 tests, staff have reviewed and have deemed that it meets each of the 4 tests of the minor variance under Section 45 of the Planning Act. No comments were received from the general public as the date of writing this report, and the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority has submitted comments stating that they have no concerns with the proposed application, and staff are recommending that the application be approved. Close presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you for that. The agent or applicants wishing to make or share additional information? Okay, thank you. And Clerk Adams, have there been any additional comments received in addition or not outlined in the summary?
No additional comments were received.
Any questions from the committee members regarding this application? And Mr. Rose here to answer your questions if you have any. Not seeing any questions. Thank you for that input. And so Clerk Adams, can you read the solution so the committee can make its decision?
The report number DS 23-15 entitled Application Number D13 MV-05-23 of Deborah Neal and James Stannard and affecting lands described as part of Lot 11, Concession 11 in the Township of Malahide, 49801 Lions Line be received, and that the Township of Malahide Committee of Adjustment approve application number D13 MV-05-23 to permit an increase in the maximum floor area of the accessory building used for home occupation in a rural residential zone.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Glinski, Counselor Wilson, all in favor? And that's carried. Please be advised that a written notice of the decisions for both applications this evening will be forwarded to designated parties, and there is a 20-day appeal period. So Clerk Adams, can you provide a resolution to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment meeting, please?
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be adjourned and that the council meeting reconvene at 7:42 p.m.
Sorry, Counselor Lewis and Counselor Cerna, all in favor? And that's carried. Counselor Wilson,
I have a question, and I know it would be sort of ridiculous.
is your microphone on?
I have a question, and it's just sort of point of order stuff, but I think it would be ridiculous if you moved something and then voted against it, but you can't. That's seems. Just checking.
Yeah, yes. So the whole purpose of putting, a motion on the floor is to debate it and then vote on it. So it has no, if you move or second, it has no bearing on the vote. But it's to generate the discussion. Yes, thank you. Always good to clarify. Next on the agenda, we do have a public meeting. So we'll call the public meeting to order. Clerk Adams, the resolution, please.
That the public meeting relating to zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z06-23 on behalf of Mount Salem Community Church relating to the property located at Concession 3, north part of Lot 21 and known municipally as 6576 Springfield Road be called to order at 7:43 p.m.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Lewis. Counselor Glinski, all in favor? That's carried. So this public meeting is required by the Planning Act and is to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment relating to Concession 3, North Part Lot 21 in RP 11R 7073 Part 1 6576 Springfield Road. One day I will learn how to read these. Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner by publication in the Elmer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on May 10th and May 17th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, can you provide an overview of the application and let us know if there were any comments received?
Sweet. So subject lands currently contain the Mount Salem Christian Church, as well as 5 classroom portables that are used for the Mount Salem Christian School. And the owners are proposing to establish a privately funded recreational facility for public use, including a sports field and courts, towards the rear of the property behind the existing church. And the classroom portables are proposed to be relocated to the property to the south, which is being developed concurrently for a future Christian school. And the application proposes to rezone the subject lands from institutional to institutional site specific in order to add a recreational facility as a permitted use, as well as include site-specific provisions to permit a reduced interior yard setback of 1.2 meters to the south property line, permit parking for the recreation facility to be provided at a rate of 1 space for 50 square meters of floor area, and permit 47 parking spaces to be provided on the budding lands to the south. The provincial policy statement encourages development of healthy and livable communities, as well as promotes efficient development patterns and provision of green spaces and public service and infrastructure facilities. And the proposed use would be located within a settlement area, which is area to be focused of development as represent an efficient use of land and resources. And so the application is considered consistent with the policies of the PPS. Subject lands are also designated as Tier 3 settlement area under the county official plan, as well as hamlet under the Malahide official plan. Both these designations permit a wide range of uses, including institutional uses. And additionally, the proposed use would be clustered with other institutional uses within the settlement area, which is meets criteria under the Malahide official plan. Additionally, the official plan policies direct adequate provision of off-street parking, landscaping, and adequate buffering as needed for development. And so it's noted that the proposed application will, the proposed development also is subject to site plan control to regulate matters relating to buffering, landscape, making on-street parking, and provision of services. As previously noted, there are a number of site-specific provisions that proposed as part of the application. The first is to permit a reduced interior yard setback of 1.2 meters, where the bylaw requires a setback of 2 meters. And the purpose of this side yard setback requirement is to ensure that there is sufficient separation between buildings and lot lines, as well as adequate access to the rear yard of parcel. There are no anticipated impacts on the abutting property to the south as a result of decreasing the side yard setback, and there would still be adequate separation be maintained with a minor reduction. It's also noted that providing a larger setback to the north side of the building would be appropriate, as opposed to potentially increasing the side yard setback to the south side of the building, as lands to the north are currently zoned for residential uses or for future residential development. The zoning bylaw does not contain specific parking requirements for a recreation facility. However, as part of the plan justification report submitted with the application, it is recommending a parking rate of 1 space per 50 meters, which would be similar to a paintball park use, which would require similar large outdoor playing spaces and used for recreational activities. In addition, the zoning bylaw requires that parking spaces be provided on the same lot as any related use, building, or structure. And the intent of this requirement is to ensure that parking spaces are provided and able to meet the needs of the use that is being proposed. The provision of the 47 spaces in the lands to the south would be proposed via an easement. And location of these parking spaces on the abutting parcel would still be appropriate, as they are in close proximity to the proposed recreation facility, and would also service the needs of both the existing church as well as the future recreational facility. The Catfish Creek Conservation Authority has provided comments. They have no objections to the application. However, noted that any works within the regulated area that is along the eastern boundary of the property would require permit approval from under the Conservation Authorities Act. Additionally, township staff have provided comments regarding the proposed facility and its compliance with the township's Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was endorsed by Council in 2021. The master plan notes trends relating to recreation uses, including the development of multi-use facilities, community hubs, and partnerships in collaboration with the community. The proposed use would align with these trends. Additionally, staff have commented that the township would benefit from this development, as there be no capital costs incurred as part of its approval, and proposed development will also meet needs of the community for additional recreation amenities. And there have been no additional comments received from agencies of the general public at the date of submission of this report. In light of this, staff are recommending that the application be approved. And I'm happy to conclude my presentation. Happy to take questions from members of council.
Thank you for that. Before we go to questions from members of council, Clerk Adams, did you receive any other written submissions?
No other written submissions were received.
Thank you. And is there anyone attending in person wish to add any additional information?
We're here representing that group, but we don't have Scott Patterson.
Can you go to the microphone so we can hear? Okay, okay. Okay, so the comment was that there were no comments to add, just for transparency, so make sure everybody heard what was said. Questions from members of council? Councillor Wilson.
The only question I had was about the minimum side yard setback, but it's a parking lot. It's not a building going up, so it's close. It's nothing anyway.
Any further comments or questions? Good. So council will consider all comments received when making a final decision on the application. And if there's no further discussion, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of this proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. So that said, we can proceed with the adjournment and consideration of the planner's report. Clerk Adams, may I have the resolution, please?
That the public meeting relating to zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z03-23 on behalf of Mount Salem Community Church relating to the property located at Concession 3 North part of Lot 21 and known municipally as 6576 Springfield Road be adjourned at 7:51 PM.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna, Counselor Lewis, all in favor? And that's carried.
That report number DS 23-16 entitled zoning bylaw amendment application of Mount Salem Community Church, Barbeau Construction London Limited be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z06-23 of the Mount Salem Community Church relating to the property located at Concession 3 North part of Lot 21 and known municipally as 6576 Springfield Road be approved for the reasons set out in the report.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Wilson, Deputy Mayor Widner. Any further discussions? Seeing none, we have the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we move into reports from our management team, starting with the director. Actually, the first report is new engineer's report for the Pritchard Drain. And we have our drainage superintendent, Mr. Lopez. You're with us?
Yes, good evening.
Good
Your
evening.
Worship, members of council. Okay, I'll just hang on a sec here. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Okay, so this particular report has to do with the Pritchard Drain. The township has received a request for maintenance for the Pritchard Drain. The Pritchard Drain services the properties on the north side of Colton Line and on both sides of Carter Road, including the Colton Swamp wetland wildlife area. The original Pritchard Drain was constructed under a report done by Graham Berman and Associates in 1969. The report called for the construction for repair and improvement of 11,000 feet of drain. So during the construction of this drain, the project was halted by the Ministry of Natural Resources, the province at the time, due to concerns about detrimental effects on the wildlife area known as the Colton Swamp. Basically, they didn't want too much drainage or drains running through the middle of the swamp because it would obviously, it may have a detrimental effect there. So the project was halted somewhere in the middle of lot 31, I believe. So about a quarter of the drain, as per the plan profile, was never constructed. There were negotiations with the landowners upstream to pay the drain assessments for these properties due to the fact that they weren't getting a drain all the way up there. So I've been on site. I've walked most of the drain. The drain's is in very poor shape. It's got tons of trees, hundreds of trees that are dead on the banks, ash trees that are in the drain, trees that are getting ready to fall down into the drain. There's a lot of sedimentation due to the obstructions in the drain itself. There are other issues I noted were five farm crossings at various points along the drain that are way too narrow for modern farm equipment to cross safely. I spoke with one of the landowners, Mr. Glinski, and he indicated that the farmer that was working his farm was barely able to get across the farm crossing with a modern combine. So the original survey benchmarks are all gone. There's been a number of severances in the watershed, and the current assessment schedule does not reflect what's out there at the moment. It's out of date. And the dollar value of this work required is going to be outside the scope of regular maintenance. So I'm going to recommend this to council at this point that we upgrade this to get a new engineer's report done under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. And I'm recommending that we appoint Spreet Associates to prepare a new report for this. And
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions from members of council? No. Councillor Wilson?
I'm sure this will be reviewed during the the process, but if the Ministry of Natural Resources shut it down because they don't want the swamp drained, what do we do about that? Like, I know you want to have farmland that's plantable, but it's also, when it's a significant wetland for the township, is that something you want to be clearing right out? I don't know. I'm asking these questions, and I'm sure you'll have an answer here.
So through you, your worship, the drain at the moment terminates at there's a water control structure there. Basically, it's a little small dam that they have that basically holds back all the water inside the Colton Swamp. And the drain starts below that. So, the drain any work that's done is not going to go very far into the actual Colton Swamp itself. And like you said, Councillor Wilson, all this is going to be reviewed by the engineer. They'll have to look at the entire watershed area, and the Ministry of Natural Resources will definitely be involved in planning of this project. The water that's leaving the site right now is barely getting away from across the road, across Carter Road. It's barely, you can drive by and actually see the water. You can hardly see the banks of the drain itself because it's so over flooded and blocked up there. So they'll definitely be involved, and they'll definitely look at all those different variables.
CO Bedridge?
Yes, and what I might add to Mr. Lopez's comments is that are locally significant and also provincially significant, but those locally significant wetlands are identified and protected in our official plan. So if there were to be any severances proposed as an example.
Yeah, I anticipate heavy involvement from the province as well as the Catfish Creek, because Catfish Creek owns two portions of the land that's inside of the Colton Swamp itself, along with the MNR there. So I don't anticipate this is going to be a very short process. So we'll look at all the like I said, all the variables and all the angles, and they'll come up with a good solution there. So.
Councillor Leach?
Through you, your worship. So on our map that you've provided, the existing Pritchard Drain is the portion that we are looking at.
Yeah, through your worship, yes, correct.
Thank you.
That's sorry, the portion in red is the actual what's left of the drain from the original report. The portion that's in yellow is the portion that was never constructed and was abandoned just by a bylaw. So the original drawing still shows the entire drain, but it doesn't actually go through the swamp there. So.
Thank you. Good questions, good discussion. There's no further comments or questions. We can have the resolution. Clerk Adams.
The report number PW 23 32 entitled New Engineers Report Pritchard Drain be received and that George Varican, professional engineer of Spreets Associates, be appointed to prepare a new engineer's report for this petition pursuant to section 78 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach, Counselor Wilson, all in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. The next report will be presented by our Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Boylan, and it's regarding tender results for the GPS survey equipment. And we'll just let our Deputy Mayor and Counselor join us again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a report for the award of the GPS survey equipment. Public Works has traditionally rented GPS equipment to undertake its road and drainage projects. But with the equipment's frequency of use, staff decided it would be cheaper to just purchase it instead. So council approved a $50,000 budget in the 2023 budget for the purchase of the equipment. Staff went out to RFP, received 2 bids, and are recommending to award the sale to Horizon Measurement Solutions, Inc., which happened to be the lowest bidder at a cost of $32,812 plus HST, resulting in a budget savings of around $17,000. Myself or Mr. Lopez can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Counselor Leach.
Through you, your worship. So for that price, does that include maintenance and recalibration on the equipment?
Through your worship, it includes a 3-year subscription service for the GPS itself. It also includes, I believe it has a 1-year warranty and comes with training. And the survey equipment is this type of survey equipment is extremely robust. It's meant to be, it's meant to survive drops. It's meant to survive in a rough environment. You don't usually get GPS equipment recalibrated as per normal survey equipment. If you bump a level or if you bump a total station, you need to go get it recalibrated. But this survey equipment, like I said, is very robust. It can handle drops, falls, and stuff like that. So there's very little or no recalibration required.
But there will be regular maintenance that would be expected?
No.
Deputy Mayor Widner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, through to Bob. Bob, are there any subscription fees on these things? I know with a lot of the farm equipment GPS, you pay something every year.
Yes. There's for this particular RFP that there was a 3-year subscription service included with that price. So I think it works out. Both of the bids worked out to be around $3,200 per year after the 3-year period, and that's a very basic service. Some of these suppliers offer a backup service, which again is another level of service you have to pay for. But the basic one is around $3,000 a year after the 3 years that we already have. So we have 3 years included in this RFP right now.
Okay, then 3,200 a year after that.
Yes, roughly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Leach.
And what is the expected lifetime?
Oh, through your worship. That's a good question. Generally, like piece of survey equipment will last. I've seen survey equipment 20 years old, 25 years old. GPS, like I said, this particular GPS is waterproof, it's shockproof, it's, I don't see any reason why you can't get 10 to 15 years out of this equipment.
Thank you.
And so even the future subscription fees would still be lower than what we have been paying for rental, right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, so there's still a savings even after the 3 years.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the resolution.
The report number PW 23-36 entitled Tender Results GPS Survey Equipment Be Received, and that the bid received from Horizon Measurements of Oakville, Ontario in the amount of $32,812 plus applicable taxes for the purchase of the GPS survey equipment be accepted.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Lewis, Counselor Zelinski, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you both. Next on the agenda, we have a report from an outside board. This time it's from the ECC Board of Management, and it's regarding the facility condition assessment funding request. CO Bedridge, will you speak to this?
Yes, thank you, your worship. So council will recall considering this matter through budget deliberation. So this correspondence is seeking Township of Malahide's 50-50 contribution to the facility condition assessment study for the EECC.
Thank you for the refresher on that discussion at the board. Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? I see no questions or comments. May I have moved the motion or the resolution, please?
That the letter regarding the facility condition assessment EECC funding be received for information. That Township of Malahide Council approves the additional funding up to an amount of $30,000 in total, $15,000 from the Township of Malahide and Town of Elmer respectively, to undertake a facility condition assessment at 531 Talbot Street West.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis, Deputy Mayor Whitner. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? And that's carried. Next is correspondence. There are 7 items. Anyone wishes to share any comments or endorsements? Deputy Mayor Whitner.
Thank you, Mayor. The guardrails on Imperial Road, at least this time we got further than last time. They said that the actual reports didn't warrant it, but we did bring up, well, for an alternative, we could put up these chevrons, and I think they will work. They are going to be huge, and everywhere we have put them, they have worked well. So hopefully it'll be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, seemed like a reasonable approach. That's worth trying for this particular issue. Any further comments on any of those items? If not, Clerk Adams, the resolution, please.
That the following 7 items of correspondence be noted and filed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Cerna. Counselor Wilson, all in favor? Carried. Next is other business. Deputy Mayor Whitner.
Thank you, Mayor. Last night, Councilor Cerna and I attended the graduation ceremony for the new recruits at South Holland. It was very well attended. Nice to see the mixture of male and female firefighters, and it's a good crowd, and I wish them all well. It's quite a commitment, so. And another thing I'd like, if I can, I guess it was Bill 97, the farmland one we were kind of worried about last meeting. I did write Mr. Flack a couple of emails, and I was pleasantly surprised to see he responded and actually called me personally, which I was shocked, but I mean, good for him. They are revoking all that. They're stopping all this stuff. Well, I guess it proves if you complain sometimes, the government can change their mind. But Ford was down here personally, and he said he talked to him, and he said, this isn't what the farmers really want. He didn't know that, but he was willing to change his mind, and so great. I think we got a bit of a win, so thank you.
So we have not heard yet the final, what the amendment will be to that, what was being proposed, but, and this particular clause in the entire new provincial planning statement was in reference, just for clarity, in reference to the additional lots, I guess, and severances allowed on agricultural land. So there was a lot of opposition. As you know, this council also submitted a letter, and it sounds like there will be some movement. So we don't know exactly what yet, but so to be continued. Great. I'll also then take the opportunity to announce that the strategic planning process will kick off. So the first phase, as you recall, is a survey. And so the survey will be available as of next week on June 7th. So from June 7th to June 28th. So it's an online survey, but it is available. A paper copy is available either at the library or at the township office. So you can pick up the copy, fill it out, and then drop it off. Otherwise, you can, as of next Wednesday, it will be available online, short and sweet. It's a first phase, and it's meant to hear from the community what people want to see more of, less of, what we need to keep, what do we need to perhaps abandon. It's time to revisit our strategy for the next 10 years. So any questions or comments on that? As we discussed, the participation rate is going to be really important. I think we agreed that we don't want to be satisfied with just whoever responds, and then, you know, so I think I encourage everybody to promote the survey as much as possible, distribute the cards everywhere you go, anyone you see, as modeled by Councillor Serna. So I think the more input, I'm stating the obvious, but sometimes it's necessary, but the more input we get, the more confident we will be about the decisions to make and the priorities that we identified. So we need everybody involved with this. So we'll look forward to this first phase being kicked off. There's no other business or questions, comments? Oh, Councillor Glinski.
Madam Mayor, will there be something in the Ulmer Express about this?
I believe so. So there will be ads during the period of the survey, so to promote it. And we also have posters available. So if you know, like we'll post them in all the obvious places and community places and community bulletins. And any other suggestions for ways to promote this as much as possible are welcome. Councillor Leach.
I thought this might be a good time to give my Good Roads update.
Yes, please go ahead.
It's been a busy month or so. In April 16th to 19th, Drainage Superintendent Bob Lopez and myself attended the conference in Toronto. So some of the highlights were the 4 Ontario party leaders spoke over the 3 days. So the PC, NDP, Liberal and Green. And it was highlighted many times that the transportation infrastructure in Ontario is $40 billion behind in repairs. The current Ontario government leadership indicated that they will help municipalities with these costs. They indicated that currently 9 cents of every tax dollar goes back to municipalities. And there are 5.5 million people in Ontario. Over the next 10 years, $180 billion for infrastructure is planned. 27 billion for new road construction and rehabilitating the existing roads and bridges. Some of the one focus of sessions was recycling, decarbonizing and green infrastructure. So they highlighted recycling of RAP or recycled asphalt pavement. Decarbonizing to net zero by 2050 is an expectation. So they provided alternative recipes for concrete to lower carbon options, such as moving from Portland cement to limestone cement, using auxiliary power units and fleets to decrease or eliminate engine idle, so that you have the auxiliary power to power like heat in the cab rather than keeping the vehicle running. Alternative fuel sources such as methane or compressed air, Consider greener options when replacing, find cheaper items and start there. So the low hanging fruit, they called it. Understand energy use through data and review it annually. Life cycle assessment. So one of the engineers presenting in a session, Amma Wakefield, can be quoted as, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and therefore you can't manage the environmental impact. So if you don't have the data, then you can't act on it. Biopavement options are in research and development using lignin. So it's a pulping byproduct, also known as black liquor, is a source to bind the asphalt. It's been in research, has been fairly successful. And there are biopaint options available now using soy-based paints for road painting. So Good Roads Conference also had a focus on rural road safety with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture represented during most panel discussions and sessions. So it was a packed 3 days. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Biopavement. That's interesting. To be continued. Anything else? Counselor Wilson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I was glad to see that the Thames Valley School Board has changed their mind on the East Elgin boundaries, and they're maintaining what we have. I'm glad they realized where the Elgin Middlesex County line is, and I'm glad they listened to all the people that sent in emails and phone calls and everything else. I'm glad that common sense has prevailed in that one. I had a constituent get a hold of me. They had some questions about the booth at the ballpark in Springfield. They're wondering why it's not open. So we have quite a jewel of a ballpark there with tons of people going through it, and no one can get anything to eat. So I'm not really sure what rent is. And if it's exorbitant and no one's manning the booth, that's not really what we're looking for either. So I'm wondering what we can do, because the lady that ran that place, like, when my kids were in baseball there, she knew every kid's name. Just it was crazy, the service that was provided. And it's unfortunate that isn't being provided now. I heard that it was because of the rent was so high that by the time you pay insurance and the rest of it, you're not making any money. Well, what people think when they come to the Springfield ballpark and there's no booth open with that many hundreds of people going through there each night, I'm sure it doesn't leave a good taste in their mouth, or any taste in their mouth, because they can't get anything to eat or drink. Thank you.
CO Bedridge.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a response for you at this moment, but if directed by council, I can have our facilities manager provide a status update report with possible options.
Counselor Wilson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think that the council would be very interested in finding out what's happening there. So that would be, and if we could rectify the situation, the sooner the better.
We'll follow up. Okay, any other business? Seeing none, we'll move on to bylaws. The first bylaw, please.
That the following bylaws be considered read a first, second, and third reading and be properly signed and sealed. Bylaw number 23-16, jury rezoning, and bylaw number 23-44, Mount Salem Community Church rezoning.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis, Counselor Cerna, all in favor? Carried. We can move on to confirmatory bylaw.
The bylaw number 23-43 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third readings and be properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Lewis, Counselor Wilson, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And we're ready for adjournment. May I have the resolution, please?
That council adjourn its meeting at 8:20 PM to meet again on June 15th, 2023 at 7:30 PM.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner, Counselor Blinsky, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.